Going?
Yep.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Parks and Rec Committee to order. Today is Monday, January 23rd. Roll call, starting from my left.
Sue Krieger.
Bob Barheit.
Paul Pizzolini.
And Jill will probably be here, I hope. And Melissa won't be. I'll certify the posting of the meeting. I certify that on Wednesday, January the 18th, 2023, the agenda for the Town of Rome Parks and Recreation Committee meeting for Monday, January 23rd, 2023, was posted it was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:20 p.m., posted at the Rome Town Hall at 3:45 p.m., posted at Quick Trip LLC at 4 p.m., and posted at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 3:55 p.m. on January the 18th. Signed by Wendy Newsom, Town Clerk.
You could just give that to Sue, then she doesn't have to.
Yeah, there she is.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, can we have an motion to approve today's agenda?
A motion to approve agenda is presented.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I don't believe we have any citizen comments. I will skip over item 5. No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Report on Parks and Planning activities. An update on the park planning activities and construction. Jamie, I didn't hear anything from Josh yet. Have you?
I was gonna ask if you heard a response from the email. I did not.
No, he said he was going to reply within the week or so. It's been more than a week, I think.
Yep, your email, I just looked before the meeting was sent on the 12th. So I will call him again in the morning.
Okay, so then, hearing from Josh, who is the main construction guy, we'd like to have a meeting with all the interested parties in construction and get them all on the same page so that we can get started in the early spring and have a clear understanding of the dates and times that people are going to get started.
I think you asked for it before the February 28th, didn't you?
Before February 10th, I think. I said something like that. Link to Lakes update.
Might as well have Lisa do it.
She's here. Let's have
Yes.
Lisa do it.
So, we had a meeting, what date was that?
The 11th.
February, or January 11th. We had probably 10 landowners, would you say, attend the meeting. I think the tone was very positive, in regards to the tunnel and some type of biking, hiking, walking trail in the town of Rome. Jewel did a great job in explaining what it would entail for each of the individual owners, what it would entail for their property.
And this is for phase 1 of the
Correct.
plan, which is basically to put the tunnel under 13 and come at the tunnel from Queens Way and then go north up to the park, right?
Correct. So our next step, the design of that phase 1 is complete. So our next step is just further discussion with the landowners as well as looking at writing a grant for the construction.
And the grant would be from WDOT or whatever it is, right?
Right,
Mhm.
a
Wis-
TAP grant, yeah.
It's a TAP grant through WISDOT.
Yep.
We won't, there's some other funding out there, but we wouldn't apply for that right now. We want to start with the phase 1 piece. The other grants are a little bit more in depth, so we thought it was better to start small and work up.
And that grant is due end of February, and we would likely hear an answer, I think they said July.
Yeah, summertime.
Okay. Item 7, approve the meeting minutes of our December 19th meeting. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on the following items. Item 8, further development of the winter activities discussion. We have Lisa Kubas here from Visit Rome today. We submitted all of our planning ideas to Visit Rome, and Lisa's here today to try to elaborate on some of those.
Yeah, I guess I first wanted to kind of talk about our stance on events in general. I mean, since we're a two-person office, so just through our budgeting and planning process, our strategy for events going forward is we're looking at existing events and trying to make them better, adding significant components on. For example, Snow Blast. It's a great winter fest already. So instead of trying to form another winter fest, it just seems logical to build on to what we have already in terms of Visit Rome. So for example, for Snow Blast this year, we are sponsoring the dueling pianos on Friday night. They thought they needed something more on Friday, so we're doing that.
Lisa, on the dueling pianos, which is, I think, February the 10th, right?
Correct.
I was a little confused about tickets. It said you had to buy tickets in advance, or can you buy tickets at the door?
I think they wanted people to register in advance.
At Arrowhead?
Correct.
Okay.
You can, to email or call Lucky.
It's probably a limited
Yeah, I was a
number.
little confused by that as well, because there isn't a purchase price for a ticket. They're just asking for a $10 donation
Yeah.
when you arrive for the event. But I think they did want people to register prior
And over at Arrowhead, who would you ask for over there?
for Lucky.
Lucky?
So, and then that $10, there'll be 2 buckets, 2 charities or nonprofits. So Visit Rome, we are donating all of our proceeds to the dog park. I don't know who Lake Arrowhead has chosen. It's like a dueling pianos, dueling fundraiser type event. So that's an example of kind of how we're approaching events. I'm on a committee with Jamie, the Christmas in Rome. We're looking at, what more could Visit Rome do in terms of decorations, or we're looking at a reindeer exhibit to add on to that event. Halloween festivities, I know this isn't winter, but looking at something, can we add a petting zoo onto this already very successful event that's in Rome already? So that's kind of our stance on events, and then also providing sponsorships to help the events, either to promote them or to help them grow, like pond hockey, the fisheries, the Tri-North ski jump. We do a bunch of sponsorships for events. So
So you mentioned Snow Blast and Christmas in Rome. Are there other annual events? Well, like you said, fisheries, but is there other annual events that you're trying to expand?
the Halloween,
Okay.
I don't know what we call it, the Halloween trick or treat in the town center. The other one we were targeting is the craft show at Lake Arrowhead. I mean, it's already very successful event. What can we add on there? Not to say that we wouldn't help with a new event, but it's just hard. I mean, it's really just Jillian and I, so we would need significant help to
Like
start
partnering
something.
with a group that's
Yeah.
looking to start something.
Yep. So, I mean, I guess I looked at the notes. The Fat Tire Bike Race at Syracuse, I think, would be something really cool and different. We only have one Fat Tire Bike Trail in Rome. It's at Sand Valley.
And it's a little icy right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, a trail there along with, some type of race would be really cool. I think something so basic as ice skating in the town center, it is just, would be really a nice addition to our winter.
If you could
gear.
count on the weather, I think that's the only thing that kind of holds us
True.
back on that.
Right. And then I know you mentioned the Tubing Hill and Visit Rome. as you know, was already looking into that. We're going to take a field trip over to Green Bay to look at a couple of their operations. And that would be with some type of snowmaking machine. Because again, we know we
Yeah.
can't count on the natural elements here. So those were kind of my thoughts on the notes. I didn't know if you had further questions or ideas that you wanted to discuss.
No, I think, I thought you just wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit on what we gave you, and this is your opportunity to do that, so. If you
Sure.
want us to do anything else on it, let us know. As far as, we can probably help with some volunteer effort on some of these items too, later on, if you need some, let us know.
Okay, all right.
I think, like the Christmas in Rome example, if there's something that we as a Parks Committee wanna do, if it would move to the park and maybe we set up something in conjunction with that would be for the park, I think that would be something we could, then we're one piece, right? Like, we only have to handle that one piece of a larger event. That makes it a much more manageable bite to chew than a whole event, but, we talked about like the, I'm gonna say it wrong, the Christmas market.
Yeah,
Chris,
I know. It's-
yeah, Kindle Christmas. But if Christmas in Rome was in Rome Town Center,
Mhm.
is there something that we could do to add a market to it? And then that
Right.
would just be our responsibility to handle that. And, then I think we add to that event and
I think it's not a bad approach because volunteer, it takes a lot to put on these events, and partnering with different groups, that's great. I mean, why not, right? Yeah. Divide
There's
and
already
conquer.
some really successful events here.
Mhm.
So, Sand Valley is trying to start a winter fest, Snow Valley. So, yeah, it's just,
Mhm.
it seems like there are plenty of events. So just making them bigger and better,
Mhm.
all working together is.
Yeah, I
seems like
think
a great-
last night on the news, they had a news item on the pond hockey, and I thought it was for here, but it turned out it was Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big tournament in Wausau too.
Okay.
I think there's one in Rhinelander this winter too.
Okay, yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sand Valley has 20 teams this year, which is good. I think
is
they had
good.
9 last year, so.
Do you know more about their Snow Valley, what that will mean, what that will entail? If they do a winter festival?
Oh, well, they are doing it.
Oh, okay.
They tried it last year too. It's open, obviously it's for the resort guests. It's more family focused, but it's completely open to the public. There's you have to have your own equipment. There's ice skating, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, but then also in the lodge, there's a lot of stuff for kids, similar to Snow Blast, face painting, crafts, and that's all free and open to the public, so.
Okay, I think that pretty much does it for item 8 then. Item 9 is about disc golf. We've been working on a memorandum of understanding between the town and the Nakusa School District, and Sue Kruger's been working on that along with Jamie. So, Sue?
Well, I believe that it was going back to the lawyer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it did, he and I just haven't been able to get it put back out for another rewrite, but I did have a conversation with Nick about the couple things that we talked about. They shouldn't be big tweaks, and then we can submit it back out to the committee before we give it to the school district.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
And I think Melissa wanted to make sure that we had a clause in there about competition events.
about tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did talk about, both if we had a tournament or if people wanted to make contributions towards the park, about how we would handle those items.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of timing and other things on the docket, but yeah, we'll get that revised and back out.
Perfect.
And we're still getting positive vibes from the Nakusa School District?
I haven't talked to him recently, but I was hoping that, once we get the MOU, maybe meet with him and just go over it. But he was very, last time I talked, he was still very
Good.
positive about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The other thing that Melissa brought up, because she can't be here today, is she thought it'd be nice to form a committee maybe and work on that so we can keep it moving. I think it's a good idea. If we have some volunteers for the committee, it'd be great.
So if you could just, if it's more than 2 people, actually, I take that back. If it's any amount of people, I think now, and I don't remember the law case that was regarding it, I think it does have to be a published meeting. Because even if it's in an informal meeting, it should have some notes that's taken that's associated with it. So, again, it's, if it's something where, if it's going to be called a subcommittee, it likely should have some structure around it.
That makes it a little bit more difficult.
Sue's been doing a great job heading it up. If she just wants to ask for help when you have tasks that you want, I mean, maybe you just
Yeah,
reach
do
out
it
to
like
one.
an ad hoc thing.
Right.
Or, I saw Melissa had a longer conversation with Michelle.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe it's worth just having a conversation with Michelle and bringing back some additional notes or
right.
minutes from that. But I think I like the list here that Bob put it as part of the agenda. I think those are some things that we just have to talk about along with the design.
Mm-hmm.
So a design is, while it is a service, like an engineering or consulting, it doesn't necessarily need to be bid out, but it's always nice to do some sort of bid document so
Sure.
others could participate. And if there is interest in several people designing it, maybe we do that and then submit it out
Okay.
and see who wants to put back in. That also gives us a competitive piece about the
That
pricing.
sounds good, sure. And that way, whoever we choose, we could say, well, we've looked at more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. that
Yeah,
is
even
always
if
a
we
good
had to
thing.
pay for one of them or both of them, the money wasn't very much money. I think it was $1,100, wasn't it, Sue, something like that? For the one guy?
Yes, well, I can't yeah, something like that. It wasn't a
It
lot.
wasn't a lot.
I guess just a comment, I think getting the MOU to the school district sooner than later is probably a good thing, just because we've indicated our intent to do it, and we just want to lock it down, because it is a good location. Makes sense, yeah.
And I mean, I would assume the school board meets through the summer, but they're probably getting to the kind of the end of their term too, where they
Yeah.
wind down, so yes,
Okay,
we will make that an important first step. That also kind of secures, there isn't any point in putting out, if we don't have an MOU to say that's the site, right?
Right.
To,
we can't really move ahead.
yeah, to design it.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any more thought of, once we get the MOU agreed to and signed, of getting a survey map put together and have it staked out? Has that been,
Yeah, I think that'd be the next step.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
would have funding in the park budget this year to do that, cause that
Alright.
wouldn't be super costly. So
Yeah.
it would be, we could reach out to a surveyor as soon as we would have an MOU signed.
okay, great.
Let me just kind of regress here for a second. I kind of skipped over item 6. I meant to talk also on item 6 about park planning activities, about grants. Jamie's working on the ARP Vibrant Spaces grant, which I believe is due.
I'm working on the WEDC Vibrant Spaces grant.
Ah,
Yep, which is due January 31st.
Okay.
Yep.
then there's 2 other grants. There's the ARP grant. It's not Vibrant Spaces. It's something akin to that, though.
Yep.
And I will work on that, make sure we get that done. I think I did that last year. And then the other one is the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant, which is, I think, March 31st. It's a bigger job to do, I guess, but we'll get it done one way or the other. So those are 2 things. I think we're going to hit one of these grants one of these days, so.
On the ARPA grant that you bring that up, if you just wanted to send an email maybe to the grants committee to say that you'd be working on those 2, but I think there was also a desire from the CDA to apply for the ARPA for beautification project for potentially a mural or a sculpture someplace in town. And I just wouldn't want us to independently of each other submit to grants. That would be my only thought.
Well, so we'd have to decide somehow which one it would be, right?
Yep. And I know ARPA does, like, once a year they do this larger one that's like up to $10,000, and then they do big, I forget what it's called. It's a small dollar amount for a big idea, and those are $1,000 ones, and those I think they do every quarter.
It's AARP, not
AA
ARPA.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, AARP.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, moving on then to item 10. We're trying to get to the final bench design requirements for our parks. And there's a couple of ideas here. I guess one of them is a more formal bench that we would have in Rome Town Center, and the other one would be kind of just a trail bench that would go off to route to 13th Avenue from the west end of Rome Town Center. So, Jamie, you were going to work on some final requirements for the more
So-
formal bench?
I had reached out just to municipalities to see how they, you could look at my copy if you'd like, how other municipalities handle this. I gave you a copy from the city of Hudson. I thought that they had a good policy that had thought of things that we hadn't thought about, but wasn't like a lot, like overboard, right? This policy does talk about other things besides benches. It talks about fountains, statues, monuments, sculptures, plaques, artwork, which I will say, since we started this conversation about benches, I've had 3 calls about other people that would like to put in benches and what the cost to put a bench in is. And I'm like, ooh, let me take your name and number, I'll get back to you, because I'm not totally sure what that cost is yet. But I thought this policy did a good job of laying out, if someone would come to us with something other than a bench, how we could have that conversation. If someone did have a great idea, that was something that was like that, but not that. It also gives out some basic objectives of what they would be looking for if there was a monument that was accepted, and that they would be responsible for all the cost, planning, design associated with construction, so it wouldn't be like, you give us this much, but it's not enough to cover the whole project if it was something larger than a bench. And then what I thought was nice is it talks about maintenance and removal, especially if things become unsightly. It's basically like a 10-year agreement to say that's the potential duration, and says that, you know, the municipality will become responsible for that, but in some cases, if we have a different agreement, because maybe it's a larger item, that those things would be detailed out before the item would be placed. So, I thought it was a good example. Then they have a very simple application form that they have people complete, so they have something on record with, what would be the memorial and where they would want it to be placed, and how does what they want to be placed fit into it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 criteria that they put in the policy. So I thought it was a good start. What we potentially would do is just slightly alter this, right? So it would be more focused for Town of Rome. It would be adopted, but it would be recommended for adoption from Parks, and it would have to go to Town Board if it goes into a policy document.
Okay, why don't we put this on the agenda for the next time so we can each have time to read through it and make any suggestions? And then we'll, hopefully next time be
So
able to.
then things,
okay.
benches and other memorials that are not within sight of the town park. So like, obviously, we have other parks around town. The dog park has their own benches. If we do put this bench along this trail, it's not really within view of the town park. Would it still be under these policies? Or do we just have people come to us and say, can I do this, and we approve it?
So I think it would still be under these policies, because we'd still want to have a form filled out to say, you have property on our property, right?
Right.
This is about where it's located, and I think the protects and enhances the attractions to residents is a very easy, gives them a place to sit along the trail while they're along the trail, right? So I still think it would be, we'd still have like the form completed, and then we would have it on file to say, draft's got 4 benches in Rome Town Center on town property.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really, if it goes to the board, they've got to approve it. Any property that the town's involved with would have to be approved, and we would have to fill out a form for it. So no matter where it is, even if it isn't parkland, it would still be town property land, and they still would have to go through that process.
Potentially, yeah.
Right.
We haven't, and again, this is kind of our starting point, because we didn't really have any requests until recently, and now we have a handful of requests. I think the other piece would be, like if we approved a draft and we said it was gonna be up to 5 benches, right, then you have the approval for the 5 benches, and then we wouldn't have
Have
to.
to do it again.
Right, we wouldn't have to do it for everyone, but likely for anyone that, if you were gonna take a memorial bench for a family member, all of those would still come to you separately to say the bench would be placed in the park, they filled out the form, it is in compliance with the policy, do you agree?
Jamie, will we have come up with a design for the bench that we would they would be able to use?
Yes, so we did come up with the design for the Larry Halverson bench that we've discussed, memorial
Right.
bench. I think what we would do is work, Gary Gievers and Jerry Wiesner have been working on that project. We would get that information from them of where they ordered it from. We're just kind of waiting for that bench to arrive so we can see it and know that's what we want and that's how we want it to look, because then I do think that's a good template to provide to additional people that would want to order. That's not to say they couldn't get it from a company that handles that product, but we would want it to look substantially similar, if not identical, to that bench.
So like
Yeah,
in
I think
in their application, it would be discussed what they want. The
yeah.
bench, we're okay with this style that's already approved for the park, and then go from there, and
Yeah.
then, yeah.
And
But
I-
if they wanted something different, that's the time that we decide if it's gonna be approved or not.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they should attach a photo or a drawing of the item that they want to memorialize.
We can make that clear. I liked how this listed out all of those items because I could see that request coming and then it being like, well, we have the policy for bench, but not for fountain, right?
Yeah.
And maybe someone would want to consider us adding that, or tree, or something similar.
So I would think this would be something that would go before the board and be approved for a inclusion in our ordinances, right?
It wouldn't go into ordinance, it would go into policy.
We
So,
have policies someplace?
yep, they're on the website.
They are. I'll have to go find them then, okay.
We have general personnel and benefits policies. This
Oh, yeah.
would fall under our general policies. Yep, just like our volunteer policy or usage of the room policy would fall underneath that.
Now, we distinction benches as far as in the park and on the trails. They're two different type benches.
It would, the way that this one is written, it says that it's in any parkway, recreational facility, walking trail, conservancy area, park. So,
No, I'm talking about type of bench.
would they
See,
be
a
different
trail
for
bench
different-
is a little different than a park bench, as far as the design, because when you came out with the design, what they sent out, that's a lot different than a park bench is. So,
Yeah, I would
mean,
think, it would say generally, we have 2 designs for benches, one
Right, that's why I'm clarified. it.
trail and one for
Right.
more public.
I
yeah.
think that's the point of the application. I think we can tell them what we want in the park for sure, but I think they can request something different for a trail, and then we just approve it, or whatever. I don't think we need to dictate what has to go where, right? We don't have to choose. Although we've already talked about the bench in the park matching, that's fine, but like as far as telling people if you want to put it on a trail, it has to be this kind. I don't think we need to do that.
No, and I think the other thing is people might present something to us that we didn't consider if we did pick ahead of time. And as parks grow, maybe people would pick a slightly different bench that would go into the disc golf park, and they would want
Something different.
they would want something that more closely relates to that. I could see once one's established, I know we talked about the Leopold bench, it's a pretty common design for a bench. If that's selected to go along the trail saying we'd like something Aldo Leopold or similar, I think would be acceptable.
But I don't think we need to, like, have that in writing up front.
No.
We can suggest it, and they can apply for it, and then we approve whatever they've asked for.
Yeah, I can see we're gonna get into all kinds of things here as we go forward. Picnic tables,
Possibly, yeah.
exercise stations, and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So then, as far as the draft benches, do we need to wait until we get this approved through the town before we go forward with the school is kind of just waiting to talk details about building these benches. And I'm just looking at, well, this is already January, February, to get them built before the end of the school year, and discussed with the school. I'm just wondering a time frame.
How are they gonna be funded? They're gonna have material expenses.
Right, and we looked into that, and, since this was draft's idea, I believe the draft group was willing to fund the materials, give them to the school, and partner with them. They were gonna build them. It's like $60 a bench for materials.
I would say go ahead with it. I mean, we're not gonna regulate exactly what it has to be. We have the general idea. It's a Leopold bench, right? So it's made out of wood,
Yeah, and it's the cross
cross
with the
thing,
back.
yeah.
So I would say if the committee's comfortable with that, then there would be a motion, because it would be specific to draft, and it might be a specific number of benches, and it would be on trails within Rome Town Center. And then, because we approved one specific bench in the park for that memorial bench.
So we could have a motion to approve draft to move forward with the Leopold style benches on trails up to 4 benches. Probably won't be that many, but and then they can move forward with scheduling it with the school.
Yep, and then I would say, let's, once the benches would be made, let's bring back location to the park.
Okay.
Parks Board to determine location in the park.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion?
Would draft want to put a plaque on the bench saying it's from draft?
So we talked to the school about that, and they do have like wood burning or engraving capabilities, and I think I don't think it'll look like a memorial type thing, but I think we should stamp it at least that property of draft,
Right?
and maybe the school will say built by
Yeah.
Nakusa High School or something like that. So I don't know that really falls under.
No, I would
Policy,
I
but
would rather
yeah.
see if you're putting out the money and the expense and doing it.
Right.
I'd rather see your name on it than
Right.
just a plain bench. So, plus you've got to remember you're going to have to anchor those down pretty good.
Well, I don't know about that because
Well,
they're not anchored at the dog park and they don't run away.
Well, you're in an open area. I know about it because I know we had those benches. They were built by AmeriCorps for our foundation, and we had some in the park over there, and they disappeared. In
At Twin Lakes.
Twin Lakes,
Yeah.
and they disappeared. So I mean, well, we divide. You could talk to Dave Trudeau because he come up with a way to anchor them so that they wouldn't be movable. But being out there alone, and it isn't that big of a bench, somebody would pick it up and want to take it to their house or someplace else. So I would look into that. Talk to Dave Trudeau on that.
Right now, they're chained to a tree out in Twin Lakes. They just have a chain and it goes to a large oak tree.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like
You
a
got
white block.
something.
My thought was leaving them mobile so that we can do trail maintenance without,
Right.
without
Well,
them.
the only trouble is I don't, if once they start disappearing, then you go through the expense of building them again and again. So that's the only thing that I was concerned about.
Okay, so is there a motion to have draft develop
I
this
will
idea?
so move. Did you get those?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the way I said.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Up to 4 benches,
Yep.
location to be determined by parks once built, on-trail system.
Okay.
Okay,
Then-
we have a motion and a second. Any further
Well,
discussion?
the Leopold benches, right? So we should also specify that.
Leopold style, yeah.
Right.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us down to item 11, which is our next meeting agenda items. One of them would be the revision of this Hudson policy for Town of Rome.
Corp. Need to talk about the update to the Corp plan. Comprehensive outdoor recreation plan.
We haven't discussed that at the board meeting yet, have we?
We discussed reaching out to get a estimate, which I have.
For Corp?
Yep.
Okay. Is that something we're going to talk about here at Parks and Rec Committee first, or?
Yep,
Okay,
that would be a recommendation to town
Okay.
board. So I could bring back the, plan document that I received from Jeff Sanders, who did our original plan at the next month.
okay, so Corp revision, we'll have that on there. We're done with benches, I think, right? Gonna take that
Except
off?
for the policy, yep.
Okay, we're gonna take that off.
And then leave disc golf on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, brings us down to item 12, which is the proposed next meeting date and time. I put down, as a proposal, Monday, February 13th. We all good with that?
Fine.
The other thing is, I won't be here in March, so you may want to think about this, whether we want to have a March meeting, or you want to just do it without me, that's fine. But just think about that, so next meeting, we'll know how we're going to proceed in March, okay? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
A meeting adjourned for the minutes at 5:37 PM.